Do you often find yourself living an entire life in your head that never actually happens in reality? You rehearse conversations that will never take place. You imagine victories you have not earned. You replay arguments from 3 years ago with better comebacks. You construct elaborate futures where everything finally clicks into place, yet when you snap back to the present, nothing has changed. You are still in the same room. Still facing the same problems. Still stuck. This is not imagination. This is not planning. This is mental desertion. And you are not alone. Millions of people spend more time in the theater of their minds than in the world that actually exists. They are present in body but absent in spirit. Seneca called this the greatest theft of all, the theft of your own life by your own mind. Here is what most people miss. Daydreaming feels productive. It feels like you are solving problems, preparing for the future, or processing the past. But Seneca saw through this illusion 2,000 years ago. He understood that the mind, left unguarded, does not serve you. It enslaves you. Why do we abandon reality for fantasy? The answer is simpler than you think. Reality demands presence. Reality requires you to act, to risk, to fail, to be seen. Fantasy demands nothing. In your head, you are always eloquent. Always victorious. Always understood. You get all the emotional reward with none of the vulnerability. Seneca described this as a sickness of the soul. In his letters, he wrote about men who were never where they stood. Their bodies occupied space, but their minds wandered through imagined disasters and fabricated triumphs. They were, in his words, slaves to a master they themselves created. This is the psychology of escapism. You retreat into your head because the present moment feels insufficient. Perhaps it is boring. Perhaps it is painful. Perhaps it simply lacks the drama your mind craves. So you construct an alternate reality where you are the hero, the victim, or the misunderstood genius. You live there instead. But here is the trap Seneca identified. Every hour spent in fantasy is an hour stolen from your actual existence. You think you are harmlessly daydreaming, but you are actually training your mind to prefer fiction over truth. You are becoming a stranger to your own life. The Stoics had a term for this: living as a runaway slave. Your mind, which should serve your will, has instead become your dictator. It drags you into past regrets and future anxieties. It constructs elaborate scenarios that will never exist. And you follow obediently, believing you are in control. You are not in control. You are hypnotized. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journals that most people are not truly alive. They sleepwalk through their days, reacting to illusions their own minds generate. They argue with phantoms. They fear futures that will never arrive. They mourn versions of themselves that never existed. This is not abstract philosophy. This is your daily experience. How many times this week have you been physically present but mentally elsewhere? How many conversations have you missed because you were replaying an old argument? How many moments of peace have you sacrificed to rehearse catastrophes that never came? The modern world has made this exponentially worse. You have infinite content to consume, infinite comparisons to make, infinite fantasy worlds to inhabit. Your mind has never had more excuses to abandon the present. And it is killing your ability to actually live. Seneca offers us a critical distinction that most people never learn. He taught a practice called Premeditation, which translates to the premeditation of evils. This sounds dark, but it is actually the opposite of anxious fantasy. Let me explain the difference. Anxious fantasy is when your mind spirals into worst-case scenarios you cannot control. You imagine your partner leaving you, your business failing, your health collapsing. But these scenarios are vague, emotional, and endless. They do not prepare you. They paralyze you. Premeditation is structured mental rehearsal. Seneca would sit quietly and ask himself, what is the worst that could actually happen? How would I respond? What resources do I have? What would I do next? He transformed fear into strategy. In his Letters from a Stoic, Seneca writes, "The man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." This is not about living in fear. This is about removing the shock value of misfortune. When you have mentally walked through a scenario with calm preparation, it loses its ability to devastate you. But notice the difference. Seneca's practice was intentional, time-limited, and action-oriented. It ended with a plan. Anxious fantasy is compulsive, endless, and leaves you weaker than before. One strengthens you. The other drains you. Most people confuse the two. They think they are preparing for life when they are actually avoiding it. They believe their mental rehearsals are productive when they are just sophisticated forms of procrastination. Seneca saw this clearly. He knew that the untrained mind does not naturally think in useful ways. It gravitates toward drama, toward extremes, toward stories that feel important but accomplish nothing. Your mind would rather simulate a heroic future than build one through unglamorous daily action. This is why he insisted on mental discipline as the foundation of a good life. He did not trust the mind to regulate itself. Neither should you. Here is the brutal truth Seneca forces us to confront. Every moment you spend in your head is a moment you are not spending in your life. This is not poetic exaggeration. This is mathematical fact. You have a finite number of hours. When you allocate those hours to imaginary scenarios, you are making an actual choice. You are choosing absence over presence. Seneca called this the cost of absence. He described men who reached the end of their lives and realized they had barely lived at all. They had been so busy worrying about the future and replaying the past that they missed the only thing that ever actually existed, the present moment. In his essay, On the Shortness of Life, Seneca writes, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." He is not talking about people who are lazy. He is talking about people who are mentally absent. People who are always somewhere else. You think you are living when you daydream about your future success, but you are actually abandoning the work required to create it. You think you are processing trauma when you replay old arguments, but you are actually refusing to let them end. You think you are preparing for difficult conversations when you rehearse them endlessly, but you are actually avoiding the vulnerability of having them. Seneca would ask you a simple question: where are you right now? Not where is your body? Where is your attention? Where is your energy? Where is your consciousness? If the answer is, in my head, imagining a different reality, then you are not living. You are spectating on your own existence. You are a ghost haunting your own life. Marcus Aurelius understood this with painful clarity. In his Meditations, he wrote, "Confine yourself to the present. Not because the past and future do not matter, but because they do not exist. You cannot act in the past. You cannot live in the future. You can only be here." This is where most people lose the thread. They believe the present moment is insufficient. They believe real life happens later, after they achieve something, fix something, or become someone different. So they mentally time travel, waiting for a moment that never arrives. But Seneca teaches us that this moment, right now, is the only moment that will ever be real. This breath. This decision. This choice of where to place your attention. Everything else is imagination. The remedy is not to stop thinking about the future. The remedy is to stop living there. Now let us bring this forward. The Stoics were writing 2,000 years ago, yet their insights map perfectly onto modern psychology. Why? Because human nature has not changed. Only the distractions have multiplied. Today, you do not just daydream. You scroll through curated highlight reels of other people's fake lives. You consume stories designed to trigger your emotions. You compare your internal chaos to everyone else's external performance. Your mind has never been more colonized by external stimuli. But the solution remains the same. Epictetus, Seneca's contemporary, taught that the chief task of philosophy is to distinguish what you control from what you do not. You do not control what happens. You do not control what others think. You do not control the past or the future. But you do control where you place your attention right now. This is the difference between planning and hallucinating. Planning is when you set a clear goal, identify the next action, and take it. Planning is concrete, time-bound, and ends in behavior. Hallucinating is when you simulate success without doing the work. Hallucinating is when you imagine confrontation without having the conversation. Hallucinating is when you replay the past as if you could change it. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, taught that wisdom begins when you accept reality exactly as it is, not as you wish it were. This does not mean resignation. This means clarity. You cannot solve a problem you refuse to see clearly. Here are the practical Stoic exercises to ground yourself. First, the morning audit. Before you begin your day, ask Seneca's question, what am I going to do today? Not what do I hope happens. What will I actually do? Write down 3 specific actions. Not outcomes. Actions. Second, the attention reset. Set a timer for every 90 minutes. When it goes off, ask yourself, where is my mind right now? Am I present or am I time traveling? If you are elsewhere, do not judge it. Simply return. Third, the evening review. Seneca did this every night. He would ask himself, what did I do well today? Where did I lose my attention? What will I do differently tomorrow? This is not self-criticism. This is calibration. Fourth, the distinction practice. When you catch yourself in fantasy, label it. Say internally, this is hallucination. Then ask, what is the next real action I can take? Redirect mental energy from simulation to execution. These exercises sound simple because they are. The Stoics were not interested in complexity. They were interested in what works. So where does this leave you? You now understand that most of what you call thinking is actually mental desertion. You now see the difference between strategic preparation and anxious fantasy. You now have tools to reclaim your attention from the tyranny of your own imagination. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. Seneca would tell you that philosophy is not about knowing. It is about becoming. The question is not whether you understand these principles. The question is whether you will apply them today. Right now. In this moment. Stop waiting for the perfect conditions to start living. Stop rehearsing a future that never arrives. Stop replaying a past you cannot change. The only life you will ever have is the one happening right now, and you are missing it. Seneca spent his final years teaching that the greatest mistake is to treat life as if it were infinite. You act as if you have unlimited chances to get it right, unlimited time to finally show up. But you do not. Every day you spend mentally absent is a day you will never recover. Here is your call to action. For the next 7 days, practice the morning audit. Every morning, before you do anything else, write down 3 concrete actions you will take that day. Not goals. Actions. At the end of each day, review whether you did them. Do not judge yourself. Just observe. Build the muscle of presence. Subscribe to this channel if you want more Stoic psychology translated into practical tools. Share this video with someone who is stuck in their head. They need to hear this. And remember Seneca's final wisdom, written as he faced his own death. While we wait for life, life passes. Stop waiting. Stop simulating. Stop rehearsing. Live now. Or live never.